Hello, and we're talking about universal themes today at King's Peak English Language Arts, and I am your teacher, Mr. Varn, and we're going to define universal themes first. The universal theme is a theme that shows up in many different cultures, books of fiction, and in real life, crossing the boundaries of culture and time. It's something we see over and over and over again, and it can unite literatures and people who otherwise don't share a lot of cultural assumptions or time place assumptions. And it's very useful to look for these in literature because they're usually there. So how do you formulate a universal theme? How do you write one down? It's actually pretty easy. It only has two parts. You need a subject, something that a particular work of art, literature, or anything says something it's about, such as power, love, etc. So you have to figure out what you think the one big idea from the work that it's commenting on. Then you need a controlling idea. What is the author saying about the subject, i.e. that power often corrupts, that love always wins, etc. So here's our example. Power often leads to corruption, or love always wins. Let's look at the first example. Power often leads to corruption. And we definitely see this in Lord of the Rings, both in the book and movie form. This was written in the United Kingdom in the 1930s and 40s. And so it's not our context, right? And Gollum is corrupted by power. The wing is power that is corrupting him. And the context that Tolkien, the author, was writing in was actually right after and during World War II. And we can look at something like the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games. And power often leads to corruption there. Like Katniss is part of a resistance movement that is corrupted. Right? And that was written during the Iraq War by Suzanne Collins. And it was made into the movies in the last decade. And it has the same theme. So there's almost 80 years difference in when Lord of the Rings was written and when Susan Collins wrote Hunger Games. 70 years difference. And the same theme applies. Different characters, different setting, both the context for when they're writing it and the context of when it's happening. So, the Hunger Games happening in the far future. Tolkien is set in an alternate far past. Susan Collins is writing in context of the Iraq War in the United States. Tolkien is writing in the context of the World War II in the UK. So very different, but the same theme. And I bet you can think of other things. So let's even look at, we often talk about this in regards to history too. Power often leads to corruption, and we have Henry VIII. This is English, so I guess you got that with Tolkien, but it's a good 500 years-ish before now. And you see a man who has absolute power as a monarch, one of the first monarchs in England to really have that amount of power. And what does he do with it? Start his own religion and get married 8 times. And kills half of the women that he married. So, maybe power leads to corruption. And so you can see here what the universal theme is. It shows up in multiple cultures. It shows up in multiple time periods. It has a subject and a controlling idea. And you can write it in a pretty simple sentence, but it is a sentence. A universal theme is not love. That's just a topic. What does the author say about the thing? What does a historical example say about the thing? That is what makes a universal theme. This has been Mr. Varn, and I hope you have a good day and enjoyed this lesson.